outset, I'd like to thank his colleague and friend, Ambassador Azaz for inviting me to speak. Energy strategy mitigation. As we all know, indispensable promoting socio-economic development and human welfare. But energy derived from fossil fuels has been as a major driver of climate change, which has now been accepted as a threat and a defining challenge of our age. The developing countries like Pakistan and other energy efficient countries face the conundrum of how to ensure their energy security, but to do so in a manner that the destabilization of climate change. Over the years, the scientific community has come up with solutions. The inclusion of a large share of clean energy from renewable sources, which will help in realizing the twin objectives of meeting the energy needs of developing countries as well as respond to the global agenda of restoring the stability of the global climate. So basically in my presentation, I will try to address the twin challenges or the energy climate change nexus. And doing so, I'll review very briefly Pakistan's energy profile, the problems of climate change, the effects of climate change, and Pakistan's vulnerability. And somewhere toward the end of my presentation, I will make some suggestions for whatever they are worth. Energy needs are concerned since the 1960s. There has been an exponential growth in our energy needs as a result of population growth, as a result of economic development, industrialization, and the Green Revolution. During the our needs were met largely from hydropower. We had Mangala, Tarbela, from the large deposits of gas domestically, but towards the end increasingly from the import of oil. From 2000 onwards, demand-supply gap began to widen until it reached during 2008 very dangerous proportions. We almost had an energy crisis, which was marked by frequent resort to the practice of so-called load shedding, which is denying electricity to homes, factories, schools, hospitals, everyone. The impact on the economy was negative. There was a loss of almost 4% of our GDP as a result of the energy which reached a figure of 8,500 megawatts almost 40% of our needs in 2012. So, Pakistan embarked upon an ambitious program of energy production, including, for the first time in the history of Pakistan, a large number of coal-fired projects, nearly half of which were presented for financing during phase one of the CPEC. So as a result of those efforts, we also made efforts for renewable energy. We have now somewhere 35,000 megawatts or so and growing. But looking at population today, we still have between 50 and 55 million people, particularly those in the rural areas, who lack access to reliable energy or any energy at all. Our energy needs are increasing by between 9 to 11% annually. So the conclusion obviously is that there is no question of letting up to expand our energy supply, to carry out energy, to enhance energy use efficiency and conservation, as well as reduce the transmission and distribution losses. That is, in very brief words, profile of our energy, namely the need for continued efforts to increase. As far as climate change is concerned, in 1992, in a remarkable embrace of science and 190, the United Nations on Climate Change, UNFCCC, which represents the essential statement of global consensus on the drivers of climate change and how the international community might respond to this challenge. As far as the drivers of climate change are concerned, it was agreed on the basis of solid, implicable consensus that the emission, the increase and concentration of greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil oil, gas, since the Industrial Revolution, had resulted in improving living conditions, promoting economic development on a scale never seen. On the other hand, it had also destabilized the global climate, brought about an increase in the surface temperature, ocean temperature, and triggered a whole lot of changes the world over, which would have profound economic, social, and security impacts. It was recognized that since developed countries were mainly responsible for creating the crisis of climate, they would also take the lead in, first, slashing their greenhouse gas emissions, and second, providing assistance to developing countries in coping with the negative implications of climate change, as well as adopt a trajectory which will be less carbon intensive, which will be more climate friendly. The latest statement of global consensus on the global response to climate change is contained in the famous Paris Agreement, which was signed, agreed in December 2015. All countries of the world were parties, but the United States, which had played a in the shaping of global climate change policy, under President decided to walk out of this. A lot of consternation, and those who are in favor of a robust global climate action. What the main elements of the global consensus are is that global climate change has been happening, it is happening, and it is likely to happen in the foreseeable future unless the international community is able to take steps to drastically reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, as well as take other remedial measures and mitigation. Secondly, that the achievement of the climate objective of climate stabilization cannot be achieved by any country or group of countries on their own. It is a truly global threat and global challenge which can only be met through concerted actions by nations, bilateral, regional, and global levels. Another of the consensus is that the international been able to establish an architecture of international cooperation and action for climate change action. There is a Green Climate Fund to which developed countries will contribute $100 billion annually from 2020. Mechanism for supporting developing countries in adaptation, called adaptation. There is a mechanism to help developing countries in achieving the requisite technological prowesses indispensable for decarbonizing the economy, for reducing the emissions, and above all, there is a mechanism, a network of capacity building organizations. Now, I should probably, Ambassador Azad Ahmad Chaudhry mentioned the consequences of climate change, but I would like to mention them very, very briefly, that basically the impacts of climate change would include the melting of the Arctic ice and swelling of sea level. The other impact will be rapid depletion of ice and snow from all the glacier systems. There are about 18 of them, including the Himalaya, Karakoram, Hindu Kush glacier system, which is one of the largest on the planet. That climate change and stabilization will mean more frequent, longer lasting, and more intense extreme events such as floods and droughts, coastal storms, and heat waves. There will also be more extreme events such as tsunamis and hurricanes, including in the United States, and the recent hurricane affecting the coastal regions of Bangladesh and Assam, India, Hurricane Bulbul, which caused a displacement of 2.5 million people. Now, consequences of climate change. The consequences of climate change, number one, destruction and degradation of coastal regions, the possible submergence and disappearance of islands and low-lying coastal areas, inundation of agricultural land, contamination and salination of fresh water, destruction of aquatic species, involuntary migration to safer places for alternative homes and livelihoods, recession of disruption of monsoon winds will eventually, as Chaudhary mentioned, eventually lead to reduced supply of water, which will in turn affect energy generation as well as food production and food security. There will also be an increase in tropical waterborne diseases, epidemics, and overall deterioration of health standards, adversely affected human security and productivity. The impact of climate change to the last assessment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change will be slowing down of economic development, acceleration, the expansion and deepening of poverty. There will also be implications of climate change, which I will, time being, if anyone is interested, I can mention that. Now, as far as Pakistan is concerned, unfortunately, Pakistan is vulnerable and acutely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change that I have. Why? There are geophysical and geographical factors. Pakistan is located in a hot and humid climatic zone with very less than 200 millimeters of annual precipitation, except in parts of the north. Our population growth, 2.5%, by unregulated urbanization. Our 1,000 coastal region, we are a very poor country, which means poor of resistance in the face of conditions, man-made or nature. Is heavily dependent on agriculture, which is heavily dependent on perennial irrigation, on freshwater supplies which come from two major sources, the glacial belt and the twice annual monsoons, both of which monsoons are highly vulnerable to climate change. We also have, and I'm sure all of you know, our governance limitations and deficits, and mostly is that while we have an elaborate disaster management policies and strategies, early warning, disaster relief, at least at the federal level, our disaster management capacity is seriously constrained by limitations of resources. It is distressing to recognize that even today, by 2019, end of 2019, some of the communities displaced and some of the infrastructure destroyed by the 2010 floods have not been rehabilitated, revived. So, one of the problems of climate change could be that there could be an increase in tensions with India and Afghanistan. All our rivers, resources on rivers originate or journey from Afghanistan into Pakistan. Critical dependence on transbound rivers makes the adequate care for the management of our transboundary issues a very high priority imperative of our national security. Pakistan has responded to the challenge of climate change. In 2012, actually 20 years after the UN Convention on Climate Change was adopted, Pakistan was able to formulate an climate change policy, which was based on the recommendations of a task force, of which I was the principal technical advisor. So we have a policy of climate change in 2012, which contains lists of measures, policy intervention on all aspects of climate change, mitigation. How can we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, adaptations? How do we protect, as was mentioned, how do we protect our socio-economic development and our vital economic sectors from the ravages of climate change? There are also recommendations on the base in the country and strengthening the capacity of our industry for dealing with three-dimensional challenges of climate change. We have a framework for implementation of the climate change. And in 2017, our Parliament adopted a national climate change law. Creates a very elaborate institutional infrastructure, a very impressive institution for dealing with climate change. There is a high-level Climate Change Council presided over by the Prime Minister or someone designated by him. There is also the Climate Change Authority and approve projects, including those that are submitted to the Green Climate Fund, to which I made a reference, the $100 billion global fund, and other funding mechanisms which were established earlier. There will also be the law provides for a fund which will be preparation of projects for implementation and for funding from domestic and external resources. As far as Pakistan's efforts to promote climate change mitigation, as a signatory of the UN Convention as well as the Paris Agreement, we are and is aware of its responsibilities of carrying out mitigation activity, and both the Climate Change Act and the climate change policy contain elaborate measures such as development and deployment of renewable sources of energy, including, they mentioned, clean coal and nuclear power, energy efficiency and energy conservation, and reduction of emissions in agriculture and transport. These are the sectors that emit the lion's share of our greenhouse gas emissions. As far as our energy policies is concerned, until 2013, we did not have any framework or policy on energy. But in 2013, we managed to formulate a national power policy, whose objectives included elimination of load shedding and increasing production, the demand-supply gap, to reduce the cost of electricity generation, to reduce transmission and distribution losses, and to promote energy efficiency and conservation through the use of indigenous sources. But the 2013 energy policy or power policy, no reference to renewable energy. As far as renewable energy is concerned, Pakistan has far back as 1983 an renewable energy, alternative energy development board, not to deal with climate change mitigation, but to promote energy. It was an energy-centered policy. And over the years, I believe the board has been able to approve and to work on as many as 145 renewable energy projects, in particular wind and solar. Last week, on the 20th of November, in Umar Ayub Khan, the federal power minister, announced a new alternative and renewable energy policy. This policy builds up on a policy that had been initiated in 2006, but has a higher ambition, some innovative ideas. Under the new policy, 2019, there will be the new target for renewable energy is generating 8,000 megawatts by 2025 and 20,000 megawatts by 2030, representing 20 and 30% of Pakistan's energy stock. The power minister mentioned that along with hydropower, the share of hydropower generation will increase to 30%. So we'll have almost 63% of our energy coming from renewable sources of energy by 2030. According to the new policy, and this is, the government will announce the production, the sites, identify the type of energy, and by local national investors, with the cost factor serving as the decisive consideration in the choice of projects. Equally significantly, and announced that one of the major efforts of the government would be local manufacturing of the equipment. So far, one of the major impediments in the development of renewable energy in Pakistan was that we neither produce solar PV panels nor turbines. Our neighboring country, India, which has made remarkable progress in renewable energy is already providing 34% of India's energy needs. Produces both the panels, the photovoltaic panels, as well as turbines. It is also improving. Umar will be one of our efforts, and he indicated that already Denmark, Japan, and China had expressed interest in investing in domestic manufacture of the essential equipment for renewable energy. Now, just to recap, the benefits of renewable energy. First of all, the deployment of renewable energy will enable Pakistan to fulfill its international commitments of reducing greenhouse gas emissions under the Paris Agreement. In my view, it will also help in achieving the goal of clean, green Pakistan, which Prime Minister Imran Khan announced in Lahore yesterday. Clean energy means clean Pakistan. Clean energy will also a more greener Pakistan. The other benefits are you will reduce your import bill for oil, which is already exceeding $16 billion annually. You will also reduce your the cost of LNG. There will also be an increase in the energy supply, particularly in remote parts. When there are problems in reaching hydropower and other, you can have solar-based power in the remotest corners of Pakistan, and this is already happening in Gilgit-Baltistan. It is already happening in Swat and in Dil, some of the remotest corners of Pakistan. And development and deployment of renewable energy will help in generating hundreds of thousands of jobs, which is increasing unemployment is one of the most serious challenges facing Pakistan today. I'd like to suggest that in view of the multiple benefits of clean and green and renewable energy, the government of Pakistan says formally a goodbye to coal-based energy. Coal is the dirtiest possible fuel. Much of the pollution in China, much of the pollution in India is caused by the use of coal. The concept of clean coal is a myth. It is not a reality. And so let's give up, say goodbye to coal, as well as take measures to undo the harmful consequences of coal, which have, the plants that have already been established. And you have a massive, very, very close to the nearly 20 million people of Karachi. It is a major hazard in the largest city of Pakistan. The new alternative and renewable energy policy that Omar Ayub has announced, I had considerable difficulties in getting a copy. One of the problems that this country faces is that the bureaucracy thinks that it can do anything. It knows public interest, it knows the wishes and aspirations of the consulting anyone among the public. So this clean policy, which has been in the making since February, in February 2019, the Cabinet Committee on Energy had approved this draft. You will not find it on the website of the ministry. So I think that it marks a significant advance in the evolution of, in the efforts made by the government of Pakistan to promote clean and green and don't have a reviewable record of implementation of policies. The 2012 climate change policy has turned into a wish list, a listing of expectations which have remained unfulfilled. The 2017 law, which is a very significant advance on climate change action, remains unimplemented, and the Prime Minister and others keep on adding new initiatives, forgetting has already adopted a blueprint, has already approved the mechanisms. So we have to, if we want to implement, if we are serious about clean green energy, if we are serious about dealing with the impacts of climate change, if we are serious about improving our credentials as a responsible member of the international community, we have to make determined efforts. There are tremendous windows of opportunity available from the global architecture of support and cooperation. But those windows, utilizing those venues of cooperation, domestic actions, a series of domestic measures. There will, of course, need for strengthening the human, technical, scientific capacity of the people dealing with these issues. I've heard that one of the major reasons why the Climate Change Authority has not been established is that the government simply cannot get candidates qualified enough to run a very sophisticated machine that will be called upon to formulate, analyze, approve projects for domestic implementation as well as funding through external sources. So a human resource revolution, technical training, a technical competence revolution, and a technological revolution are the essential for a transition as well as the fulfillment of our commitments. That is how you energy policies towards climate change mitigation, and I thank you.